after us. They know we're still in here.
They're after the place. They don't know why. They just remember. Remember that they want to be in here.
What the hell are they?
They're us, that's all. There's no more room in hell.
What?
It's something my granddaddy used to tell us. You know Macumba? Voodoo. Granddad was a priest in Trinidad. He used to tell us, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Welcome to Ghoul Radio 3, As Above, So Below, Episode 3. I'm your host, Rob Cortez. Back in October 2022, I drove to New Orleans. When I got there, I had a vegan po' boy sandwich and a cold beer brewed by a local brewery called Abita Brewing Company. You know me, whenever I go anywhere, I gotta try a local brew. I made my way down to downtown NOLA and stumbled across a Haunted History's Dead of Night tour, and obviously signed up. Later that night, I met up with other fellow ghost hunters at the Bloody Mary's Haunted Museum and Voodoo Pharmacy. One of the stops included visiting a historic cemetery. Now, these cemeteries are different. They are not your typical 6 feet underground graves. Some are beautiful mausoleums. Along the way, we visited 2 haunted spots, a bridge and a tree. I love NOLA trees. They look like something out of a Tim Burton movie. We ended the night walking in and around Bourbon Street, made our way into a secret vampire bar, and drank absinthe. Besides the historic buildings and bars are several shops that sold items pertaining to voodoo. This piqued my interest. While I was on the ghost tour, our tour guide talked about someone who left their mark deep into the city's history, and that name is Marie Laveau. Marie Laveau, aka the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, was taught by her mother the practice of alternative and holistic healing methods for the family and their community. They were well-known practitioners of spiritual charms, and Marie Laveau grew into the public title of Voodoo Doctor, and later a leader of the Voodoo spiritual community. And now, our special guest. Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Absalom Yatsira.
All right. I came across your page online and I was instantly fascinated. Question 1. Absalom, what is voodoo? Is it a religion, belief, or practice?
Oh, that's a very complex question. What is voodoo? Voodoo is a lot of things. It's all of those things and more, really. Is it a religion? It is a religion. It's a very organized religion that comes from indigenous roots in Africa. Is very much a belief because people they believe in it every day of their lives. They're walking and living and breathing that essence that is called voodoo. And so that's why it's a practice as well. It's something that you do every day. What voodoo isn't is it's not just magic spells and voodoo dolls and charms and all of that. Voodoo as a religion really is the service to the spirits of voodoo that are called the Lawa. A common spelling for that is LWA. And what Lawa translates into is law or governor. And so, really, it's just telling you that those spirits are governors or laws over certain entities or elements, celestial or terrestrial. It could be this voodoo spirit is over the thunder, and this voodoo spirit is over the stars, or this voodoo spirit is over rivers and fields, etc., etc. And voodoo, as us, as practitioners of voodoo, we're really called sevite. Sevite means servant. And so we really are servants to the Loa. And in that, it can be, there are over 400 Loa, by the way. That's the saying, that there are 400 Loa, and to each one of those Loa, there are 400 more. So very complex. And so in voodoo, you have a lot of people that have different Loas that govern their heads or govern their lives. I guess you could use, for example, it's like in Catholicism, when people are born, they're born on the day of a saint. So if you were born on the day of Saint Sebastian, that kind of becomes your patron saint and your guardian saint. So it's the same way in voodoo. If you become the child of Legba or of Erzule or something like that, they become the main spirit in your life that you use for guidance, that you pray to. So that's one of the neat things about voodoo that a lot of people they don't understand.
Okay. Yeah, very complex for sure.
Yeah,
Is there a difference between your voodoo and New Orleans voodoo?
there is a difference between every practitioner of voodoo. I'll explain some things to you then. Voodoo's origins come from Africa. So the way voodoo is practiced in Africa is very different than the way it is practiced in the Caribbean islands. Not just Haiti, but on the other side of Haiti in Santo Domingue, they call it 21 divisions. In Jamaica, Cuba, Bahamas, St. Vincent, all those islands, they all practice some form of voodoo, and it is very different. Same as how it got here to the southern coast of the United States, wherever voodoo landed along those slave ports, it took on the characteristics of those places. So, voodoo practice in Mississippi is not the same as voodoo practiced in Alabama, it's not the same in Louisiana, and it's not the same in Texas. While voodoo has the same underline through that whole thing. So, the same as it is here in Houston is the same as it is in Benin, Africa, which means that spirit, that Loa, exists there as it does here. The only thing that may change is that over in Africa, they may not offer it white rum like they do in Haiti. And here we may not offer it white rum because of resources. We may offer it something else. So things change, especially as cultures come into it, as cities come into it. Voodoo in New Orleans is very beautiful, and it definitely takes on the culture of the city when you look at it. It definitely plays into the Mardi Gras and all the festivals and stuff like that, right? But when you look at voodoo in Houston, it kind of takes a more quiet tone. It's not as flashy as in New Orleans, you know. But
Yes.
then when you look at it, the culture also isn't as big as it is in New Orleans. Yeah, I mean it's beautiful, and really the beauty of it is that you can intermingle with all of the different types of voodoo as a practitioner. You can come to the ceremonies in Houston and participate in those, and you can go to the ceremonies in New Orleans and participate in those, and they're all different, you know, but we all have a central core of prayer. That's what that
Okay.
religion part is. If I'm praying to Papa Legba here in Houston, is definitely the same prayer that they're saying in Haiti. That's why it's in either Creole or in French, the prayers.
Oh wow.
Because even though they speak an indigenous dialect in Africa, they most likely, because of colonization, will speak French. And so that's how that gets carried along from Africa to the southern United States, and why, which in voodoo, we either say the prayers in Creole or we say them in French. It's so wherever you go to a ceremony or whatever the culture origin of that ceremony, you're going to be able to participate in that. Kind of like why the Catholics made all their services in Latin. So no matter where you go to a Catholic church in the world, you'd be able to understand the Mass because it's in Latin.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah.
What does the Santa Muerte have to do with voodoo? I asked this question because I noticed that you had a lot of Santa Muertes in your shop.
Oh yeah, nothing. My wife practices Santa Muerte, and we share space here. So she operates Santa Santissima Muerte Houston, where she has a public shrine for people here in Houston that, I mean, but they come to her from all over the country to pray here. But it's that started, the only reason why that is here is because I had this business and I had this shrine to Marie Laveau. And when me and my wife started dating, that spirit came to me to gift her a statue of Santa Muerte, and I did, and that's how that started. Then, of course, you know, we got married, and it started her ministry, and she started a chapel, and she has her business called Santissima Muerte Houston, and that's why they're together. But in the end, they're not the same. They're very different. However, there are people, because of mixed backgrounds, that they do practice voodoo and they do pray to Santa Muerte. They have black ancestry and they have Hispanic ancestry. So they're like honoring duality, you know.
What is the difference between voodoo and hoodoo?
So the big difference between voodoo and hoodoo is the presence of the Loa, those spirits that govern the elements of voodoo. In hoodoo, it very much is a lot about herbs, about roots, a lot about nature. In voodoo, Christian aspects that you see in it, you see like the practice of the reading of psalms, of burning of candles, incorporating a lot of herbal baths, things like that. So that's where you see a lot of the intertwine, though, and confusion between voodoo and hoodoo, is because it's not uncommon for a voodoo practitioner to practice hoodoo. They go hand in hand. But the hoodoo practitioner is more of the herbalist and the spellcaster. A voodoo is any regular person. They're not magical, they're not a witch or anything like that. It's just like saying I'm a Christian, and the voodoo might go to a hoodoo practitioner for healing or some spellcraft or something like that. So that's the big difference in it.
It kind of sounds like hechicería, which is like sorcery.
Yes, because
Would you say that?
in voodoo there's a higher hierarchy. There's a high priest and a priest and then acolytes, and there's levels and initiations and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
In hoodoo that doesn't exist. You see, so that's another big difference in that as well.
What kind of problems, issues, or situations have you done spells for?
I have been doing spell work for over 20 years. When doing spell work, I have a code of ethics that I follow, first of all. So, the one type of spell work that I will not do is any spell work which will bring harm to a child, a minor, anyone under the age of 18. And for that, I've had to deny particular spell work where people might be going into CPS cases or things like that. But those are some of the spells that I have helped people with. I do a lot of legal work where it is CPS cases where people are just trying to get their children back. I do a lot of spell work with people in their businesses to open doors. Number one spell work will always be love work. I was taught that very young by my mentors coming into this. They said everyone's always going to come to get their lover back or to break someone up or something. And that's where you have to start putting some ethics yourself. That's why some people they don't do love binding workings or they don't do this or whatever based on their ethics. For me, one of your questions was, how has my past shaped my practice? I'm a social worker, right? Well, for me, whenever I do spell work, and I thank my mentors for this, I had really good mentors growing up and leading me in this. One, I'm always going to listen to the person and never judge them. What's the situation like? Why do you want this person back, or what's going on? And then to be real with the person. I mean, do you really want this loser back in your life? They keep cheating on you. Like I have to, in social work, we call it redirecting the client. Like, are you sure you really want to do this bad thing in your life? Put it in them. Or I tell them, you could bind this person to you and then you're going to be stuck miserable in spell work, what we call consultation. I really want to consult with them and tell them, hey, this could be some of the outcome of what could happen if you do this. Are you okay with this? And I always give them an opportunity to change their mind. As a practitioner, as a spell caster, my ethics is that after I have told you all the warnings and all the signs, if this is something that you still want to do, then I will provide the service to you for a fee. And with that fee, as a spellcaster, you assume all the responsibility of whatever may come out of that spell. I'm just here to put it together for you. If you're cool with that, we can do business. And that's why I always have to tell people in love spells, hey, this can happen. Are you really sure you want to do this? And 9 out of 10 people will always say, yes. It boggles my mind, but people will always say, yes, I want that dirt bag back in my life. I'll read the cards and I'll go, hey, but there's someone even better like 6 months down the road. Like, are you sure you don't want to just wait 6 months down the road to meet this person that will treat you better? No, I want this person now. Okay. And then, like I said, second to that is money. People, they come for their business ventures, and those are my favorite to do. I always love doing financial spells for people where it's going to open doors for their business or keep money in their pocket or get them a better job or a raise at work, because that is the spell work that really changes some people. They see things going for them in a better way, so it alters their energy and their vibe. I have done a lot of spell work for people.
Who introduced voodoo to you?
Man, long story short, voodoo called me when I was young and in the Marine Corps. I was in Iraq, and I had a dream of this image, and I had that dream repetitively for about a year and a half while I was over in Iraq. I served in OEF and OIF 1 and 2, and then so Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. And when I came home, I was introduced to a hoodoo lady here in Houston named Miss Lilith Arsenault. They called her Mama Lilith. And that's how I got introduced to hoodoo. And what brought me into that is my cultural background has me in curandesmo with a lot of herbs and stuff. So it was just natural. We were exchanging information and knowledge. Oh, I know about this use of herbs for this, and she'd go, well, I know about it for this. And so that's how that started. And it was in a conversation that she was talking about a voodoo spirit that I remembered that dream that I had. And when I told her about it, she sent me to New Orleans because she didn't really know anybody here who practiced voodoo. She knew a priestess in New Orleans named Priestess Miriam Shamani. She runs the Voodoo Spiritual Temple there in New Orleans. She said, if I trust anybody in New Orleans that can kind of tell you right, it's going to be this lady, so go see her. And I did. I scheduled a trip to New Orleans and went down there. And, if you ever go down to New Orleans and you meet Priestess Miriam, she's been there for 30 plus years now. She's very hard to talk to, first of all. I had a lot of persistence, I had a lot of respect, and she was my introduction to voodoo. She was my introduction to New Orleans, to the culture, ceremonies, and stuff like that, and whatnot. But that was my introduction to voodoo. I learned Haitian voodoo from another mambo who practiced Haitian voodoo. I learned African voodoo from another gentleman who practiced particularly African voodoo. So, but it was Mama Lilith who was the one who pointed me in the right direction to go meet Priestess Miriam. That led me to meet another Mambo, and that led me to meet another Hogan. Hogan is a priest, and Mambo is a priestess. And it's still a journey. I still learn a lot of things from other voodoo practitioners and priests. So this every day is an introduction.
We live in South Texas. We have herberias, we have curanderos, brujos, etc. Are there any similarities between them and voodoo?
Yes. I mean, the similarities that I see between brujeria and curandesmo, even what I hear a lot of people, they call it barrio magic, is the same as I see in voodoo. It's faith. A lot of people are praying to Lawaz, and New Orleans and the islands puts these spirits into the image of saints. So in voodoo, you see a lot of saint images. I have tons of saints on my altars, and so we're saying prayers to them. You see the same things in a lot of Hispanic Latin culture. One of the cross tools that you see across the board is the rosary. You can pray a rosary to a voodoo spirit or a voodoo saint the same as you would to a Catholic saint or a Catholic angel. The angels are very big in voodoo. So, because Catholicism had a very profound effect in Mexican and South American culture, as well as Black culture in America through the slave trade, that's why you'll see those parallels in there. And that's why they are similar. The other thing that you look at is that voodoo is very organic, just like brujeria and curandesmo. It doesn't have it's this way every day. It's whatever your region is, you'll incorporate that. So, I mean, we talk about that a lot with, if you look at the anthropological of We had a lot of people come from Katrina, from New Orleans to Houston, okay, that practiced voodoo. Well, when they got here, the resources in Houston were different than in New Orleans. And so they changed in that manner. Here, you're looking for, here we have rue, rosemary, aloe vera. We have a lot of these Mexican plants. And so they're coming and they go, well, I don't have a hoodoo shop to go to, but there's this yerberia. And so if the Mexican lady tells her, well, I don't know what that is, but you can use this herb for protection, the voodoo person is going to go, okay, well, give me that. I'll use that for protection. And so it's very organic in that way. That's how there's a lot of similarities between them.
What you mentioned about Katrina, I guess that makes a lot of sense. A lot of people had to go to Houston for like a safe haven, and they
Yep.
brought their beliefs and everything, and maybe that's why this practice is growing, like in Houston. We went to Houston like a couple of years ago, and I didn't see anything about voodoo until I started looking to see if there was any voodoo practitioners here in Texas, and you were like the main one that came out. So it's an honor to have you on this show. Seriously.
Yeah, and I started that because of that. There was no place in Houston, I've worked in some other shops, in Houston prior to opening my own place, and working and meeting other voodoo practitioners where, hey, there was nothing. Going to New Orleans, so I would leave from Houston and drive to New Orleans almost every weekend. And like that was my community. And so voodoo was there, so I wasn't in Houston. And really, it was a calling by the spirits there to say, hey, you need to establish a place in Houston, because I had the fortunate ability to travel back and forth every weekend, to go to that. But it was like, there's people in Houston that they need that. And that's why we established Absalom's House of Voodoo. That's why we're on a property that is more than just a shop. People come and they build community here. So yeah, I didn't open it until 2016. And we have what we have now. Voodoo is growing. Luckily, there's even two more businesses in Houston. It's called the Little Red One Shop. It's a hoodoo shop. When you say what's the difference, if you go into our two shops, you'll see the difference. You'll see how we're voodoo and they're hoodoo. Just even in what we have in the store is different. Practitioners in Houston now have those options. They can now, and I mean, we share customers really because such a large city, but that was never available. But the people are here. Yeah, voodoo is very much alive in Houston, just as much as it is in New Orleans and in Haiti and in Africa.
I have two other questions.
Okay.
Have you ever received any negative feedback?
Yeah, like I started getting hate. I was hired by a local internet radio station in Houston called Local Live Radio. And they wanted to do a radio show based on voodoo and conjure and stuff. And it was called Bayou City Conjure Radio. And me and Mama Lilith, the lady I was telling you, became the hosts for that show. And that's when I started getting haters. But I was advised, don't pay attention to them, don't respond to them, you just keep moving forward. All that means is that you have arrived, and so keep going forward. I have had curses left at my shop gate, pots with sacrifices and blood and stuff at my gate, and you know what I do? I pick up that poor little dove or animal that's in there and I pray for it and I bury it, and I go, God, poor thing, you lost your life over some idiot's jealousy of me. I have had people try to slander my name online. I have had competitors, not even in voodoo, just other shop owners in Houston try to slander my name. online, through social media, you name it, it's been there. But I'm not the kind of person that I'm gonna, I believe that those people, they'll take care of themselves for whatever reason. And this lady I know, Mama Star, she's an old conjure woman from back in the day. She gave me that bit of advice. If somebody has a problem with you, that's their problem, not yours. Let them deal with it. You move on.
Another question. Can you share a paranormal experience of yourself?
Oh, okay. I got one for you. You want to know what really made me a believer? And this happened when I was a teenager. Okay. I grew up in Needville, Texas, and I lived on Foster School Road. It's an old country road. And I was getting ready for some final exams. I was studying late. We used to have these things called 6 weeks tests. Back then, I'm 43. Back then, you didn't have to have an ID to buy a pack of smokes. And I was already smoking then. So there was an old truck stop down on 360, about maybe 4 or 5 miles down the road from my house. And I said, okay, it's about 2 a.m. I'm going to go get a pack of smokes at the store and come back and call it a night. I'm done studying. And driving down that road, and anybody who's from Needville will know that how dark those roads used to be back then. You can't see anything. And I drove past, it's a key street. It's called Waddell Street, or excuse me, Waddell Road. And I went just a little bit past Waddell Road, and there's nothing but fields out there. And I saw a guy walking barefoot in shorts and a t-shirt. And I'm going to tell you, from the country, it's not out of the ordinary to see somebody walking barefoot. Okay. What I did was it was kind of getting foggy and like misty, like rain. Again, nothing out of the ordinary. And I was just being friendly and pulled over and told the guy, hey, man, where are you heading? And he said, I'm heading down to the truck stop to get a case of beer. And again, in these towns, again, back then you could get beer after a certain hour and you could get cigarettes without getting carded. And I said, well, I'll give you a ride because I'm going there to get a pack of smokes. And he said, oh, I got a pack of smokes. I'll give you a smoke for the ride. And I said, perfect. And so he did. It was a pack of Cools. And I had a little Pontiac at that time. And we drove to the store. I went in, grabbed my pack of smokes, went back to the car. The guy, I didn't pay attention to him, went in, came back with a case of beer, got in the car. We're on the way back. It's about to start raining. And I told the guy, I said, you live down Waddell? And he goes, yeah, but just drop me off at the corner of Foster and Waddell. I'll walk the rest of the way. And I said, okay. And he said, anyway, what do you do? And I said, oh, I go to school at Needville High School. And he says, I got a niece that goes to school there. Her name is Tabitha. I said, yeah, she lives right down the road, right down Waddell Road. The bus used to drop her off there. And he goes, well, if you see her tomorrow, tell her uncle said hello. I said, okay, sure. And I dropped him off there and I went home. The next day I'm in school and I saw her at the lockers and I told her, hey, your uncle, I dropped him off at Waddell last night. I went to go to get a pack of smokes and he told me to tell you hello. And she said, my uncle? And I said, yeah, your uncle. I said, this white guy, kind of shaggy blonde hair. And I saw he was wearing shorts and I picked him up. He wasn't wearing any shoes. And she just says, that's not funny. And she got mad at me and she took off. And I was like, damn, well, okay. She was 1 year older than me and I was friends with her brother. And her brother come to me and said, man, that wasn't cool what you told my sister. And I said, about what? Your uncle saying hi? And he says, are you for real? He says, you don't know? And I said, no, what? And he said, the guy you described is dead. And I said, what? He said, our uncle died a year ago. He says, this week, he said he was hit by a dually. The uncle was an alcoholic. He was known for walking to that truck stop at 360, always to get a case of beer and walk back home. The creepy part was that he told me the dually didn't see him and hit him so hard that it knocked him out of his shoes. That creeped me out. What creeped me out even more is that the dude had left the pack of cool cigarettes in my car. I told her, I said, I'm sorry. After school, she came out to the parking lot, and I said, I don't mean to scare you or anything. I said, this is already creepy for me. I said, but he left his cigarettes in my car last night. I said, and I was going to give him to you to give him back to him. And I mean, that was the weirdest paranormal thing that happened to me. And since then, I don't do ghosts. If you tell me a place is haunted, I'm not going. If you tell me, like they say, oh, there's that place where you put a flower on your window and the little hands will push your car, I'm not doing that. No way. That experience was enough to make me a believer and to never want to deal with any of that like that. Not ghosts. Not ghosts.
In my research for this episode, I stumbled upon a passage from a book titled American Brujeria, Modern Mexican Folk Magic by J. Allen Cross. And that passage was, death will come for everyone, regardless of their history, lifestyle, or social standing. She loves everyone in equal measure. Death is also devoid of a moral compass. She doesn't strike down just the bad people or the good people. She is separate from good and evil. Death simply is. And now, our special guest.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Mariposa Yetzira. I am the founder of Santa Muerte Houston.
Who is La Santísima Muerte?
She is an unrecognized folk saint for Mexican people. Well, that's where her origin comes from. For me personally, she's an embodiment of indigenous dead deities.
What is the biggest misconception regarding La Santísima Muerte?
That in order to devote to her, you have to give her your life, and if you don't, that she's gonna take someone from you. Or if you leave your devotion, she's gonna kill somebody in your family, which is, not true at all.
Have you gone to Mexico to visit Doña Queta?
No, I have not.
Have you ever heard of her?
Yeah, I know of her. I follow her story a lot, and I do plan on going to visit sometime soon, hopefully. She was gifted this statue when her son was incarcerated, and that she helped him get out of jail. And because of that, she ended up putting that statue where she would make like her food, and people just started, coming to pray, and that got her to open up that public altar. And fast forward to now she has her store.
What inspired you to believe in La Santísima Muerte?
Well, when I was young, I had a very close encounter to death. I wasn't really a believer like that yet. My brother was a devotee, and I lived with him for since I was like 16 to almost 17. And then when I left his house, he gave me a keychain and he said, "Well, you might not believe in her like that, but would you accept this as an offering for her to take care of you?" And I was like, "Well, it's my brother, so." I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take it with me." And I had a lot of respect for her. I just didn't like pray to her or anything. And then it wasn't until she got me out of this situation that I was in that I asked her if she got me out of it, I would devote myself to her. And sure enough, that next morning she did. She came through for me, and after that, and this was back in 2017, I started like praying to her. I would just see signs of her everywhere after that.
And what does La Santísima Muerte mean to you after that experience?
To me, it was a reality check for me to stop, wasting my life, doing things that would put me in predicaments of life and death, and usually it would go pretty bad. And that's what I learned from her, is to value my life, to not waste it, that, not everybody's promised today, even, nobody's promised tonight. So why should I live my life wasting it?
Have you seen a growth in La Santísima Muerte?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Especially over here in the US. Or and even I started an Etsy shop in 2021, I believe. And then at first, it was just a couple of people from like Laredo, Texas, or closer to the border.
Really?
And then all of a sudden, I just started getting orders from France, from Japan, from, Australia, Germany. And then I just started seeing more people start posting about her from all over the world, not just here in the US.
What kind of blessings can La Santísima Muerte grant?
I've heard stories of her healing people. I've seen them, like some people are on, what do you call it? Like deathbed, or
Oh,
they have terminal cancer or something, and they'll start praying to her, and all of a sudden, they start getting cured or they start feeling better. I've also seen people who, well, recently, actually, this lady that she was one of the first reasons I opened the public altar. She messaged me saying that, thanks to having the altar, that she became sober. She's been sober for 2 years now. She got a job, she has a house. I've seen, that takes work, but it also takes a miracle, because to leave drugs for them, I know it's pretty hard. They have the relapses and all of that. And for her, I know it was that devotion that got her through it.
when people go to your shop and are they curious about La Santísima Muerte, what do you tell them? What do you help them with?
So they always come to me to help them solve their issues, right? And when it comes to people that are looking to be devotees or already in their journey of being a devotee, I show them how to harness their own power by praying to her. They'll come to me, can you pray for me? I'll tell them no. You can go sit and you can go pray for yourself. It's really about showing them how to be able to tap into that devotion on their own without having to depend on me to show them. Because once you start, sitting and dedicating more time, you start hearing her more, you start knowing what to give her, you start knowing what not to give her, what candles to burn.
Do you stray away from anything when it comes to La Santísima Muerte?
Yeah, when if they ask to like harm somebody, the only, justified ones would be like people that cause like physical damage, like sexual assault or anything like that. But other than that, I won't, like if because this person got you mad that you want to do this, I'll be like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
How do you make an offering to La Santísima Muerte?
Really, it depends on the person. Like if she knows you don't have any money and all you did was pick a flower, she understands that and she'll accept that. Opposed to somebody that has a lot of money and they're just like, oh, I'm gonna just give you some change, she's like, hey, what's going on here? You can't, why are you just giving me change and you want all this from me?
Can you share with our listeners a story of someone who actually used money for an offering or not used money for an offering?
So I know this guy that was trying to get, I think on his stocks, he was trying to get that number to go like, I don't know, a certain amount. And he ended up offering, I think it was, I mean, it was a good amount of money in that, the donation bin I have. And then he tells me later that week that the number he was aiming for, he got it.
And when you were growing up, did you know of La Santísima Muerte?
I grew up in a Mexican household, so to them she was evil, she was bad. But my dad has always liked skulls and skeletons. They would make fun of like skinny guys, like in between them that they're friends, and I'll just hear him tell his friend, "Te pareces a la parca," or stuff like that. And then I would ask him because I was little, like, "What is that?" And then he'll tell me who it was, and I never feared her or prayed to her again, right? I just knew about her and was like, okay, well, everybody dies, so.
You've always embraced the whole concept of death. What have you discovered of La Santísima Muerte through your journey?
I've discovered to be pretty open-minded with everybody's devotion and journey with her, because it's not like it was back then where everybody had to hide it, where it wasn't as openly accepted to venerate her. And so they did place certain rules for her, opposed to like fast forward now, my journey is not going to be the same as this other person's journey. And just because I do it a certain way doesn't mean that they have to do it a certain way either. The history of the name Santa Muerte itself does come from a Catholic background, and it does come from the image of the Spanish when they brought La Parca, and indigenous people that were getting converted into Catholics saw the image and were like, oh, that's kind of like ours. We're just gonna hide our dead deities into her. And after that, that's just who they knew now, because they were forced to leave their indigenous languages and were forced into this way. So that's how everybody knows her as. And then up until like, I don't even know how many years ago, but it's been a couple of years too, that they started bringing in the Santa Muerte Azteca, which everybody navigates towards that one when it comes to indigenous her indigenous way. It's like I said, to me, I don't know what my people in from that region in Mexico and from Guanajuato call their death deity. So that's why I just say, Santa Muerte too.
Do you see more men or women seeking La Santísima Muerte?
Lately, I have gotten equal amount, but the ones that do walk in through that door more is women.
And what do women ask compared to men?
The man want a lover bag. They just want the girl bag usually. The women, they either want to heal from a broken heart, they're going through something really traumatic and they don't know how to deal with it. And sometimes, they just have issues with their mother, and by coming to this altar is like comforting to them. She ends up becoming like, I guess, a mother figure to them. I mean, she is trendy, but also, just people wanting to connect more with her. And a lot of the younger devotees call her mommy. They'd be like, that's my mommy, or see mommy, or, they just call her that. And then a lot of the older devotees are like, that's weird. Don't be calling her that, or like, stuff like that. But it's like, you can't tell someone not to do that if the spirit is, they have that connection with them.
Is there a difference between La Santísima Muerte and La Santísima Muerte Azteca, the one you just mentioned?
To a lot of people, yes, because again, they'll use that one for an indigenous identity,
Okay.
opposed to just La Santa Muerte is like more Catholic for them. So a lot of the what they call traditional devotees, they pray the Catholic way.
Okay. So they actually acquire religion.
They'll do novenas, they'll do rosaries, they'll do misas.
Do you have more curious people who are younger or older?
The age is both.
Are there different versions of La Santa Muerte besides those two?
There's different aspects, yes, which has only been around, I think, since the 70s or the 80s. And it's just basically people incorporating magic into her colors.
Can you go more in depth with that?
People that have been in the cult for like a long time already. I think since like the 70s too. And they go to other places of worship in Mexico that have been along for a long time too. There was originally just three colors: white, red, and black. Red because everybody uses love. White was more of like a pure energy, and then the black one was more for like if you needed to do protection or you needed to do something against someone. Then it started changing with gold for prosperity, green for legal, blue, a lot of people use it for like studying, or when people are like writers, artists, they'll use that one. Then purple is a lot of people that do magic that use purple. Pink is like self-love. And then brown and orange, it varies really between people and how they practice their magic.
Is there a holiday where they worship La Santísima Muerte?
I think there's 2 days that she is celebrated the most, and one is August 15th. And I honestly don't remember the story behind that one, but I know that they say that that's her birthday. And then November 1st, just because, Day of the Dead.
When it comes to Dia de los Muertos, how is she used during that day?
Well, for that one, she's mostly just celebrated by people that are already devotees. Because although she is, folk saint from Mexico, she's not recognized. And so she's like pushed to the side by Catholics. And Catholics celebrate Day of the Dead, but they don't celebrate her.
During that day, her devotees, how do they celebrate her?
Some of us throw parties. Some of them will incorporate it into if they do a Day of the Dead altar, they'll add her to it. Or if they're doing something for Day of the Dead, they'll include her in it.
And now that you answered that question, how do you celebrate her in Dia de los Muertos?
I incorporate her into our Day of the Dead party. So I have a ofrenda, and then I'll have a little altar for her. And then sometimes I'll put them together.
What does your community bring to the party?
I have, so for all the new people, they're welcome to just bring, flowers or an offering to her, apples or whatever it is they can afford. And I have these group of ladies that help me organize the parties. So they help me like bring the food, and then they'll help me like if we're doing crafts that night, or if whatever it is we're doing that night, they'll help me with donations or their time.
Does your family celebrate La Santísima Muerte?
No.
So it's just your individual thing.
Mm-hmm. And my children do, but my parents or anybody in my family, no. My dad is accepting of her. If he sees something of her, he'll like get it for me or whatever, but he himself doesn't really consider himself a devotee.
You also celebrate with Absalent, right? With your husband?
Oh yeah, he celebrates with us.
That's really cool.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Mariposa, and have a great night. And hello to Absalent.
Oh yeah, he's right here.
Hey, hey, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And if we go up there, we'll definitely visit you guys.
Okay.
Look forward to seeing y'all.
You too. Thank you so much for doing this, guys. I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
I'd like to thank Absalom and Mariposa for sharing their expertise on voodoo and La Santísima Muerte. And to my Gouliacs, I hope you have gained some knowledge from this episode. In our season finale, I hope you can keep that open mind. I've been wanting to talk to an expert in her field for many years. It's a topic that is often tabooed, misunderstood, and quite frankly, many find frightening, but not me. It's the devil you know and the devil you don't kind of guess. Stay tuned, Gouliacs.